If y'all don't give us what we want, like, we sit
Yeah,
no.
that's a possibility.
Dear WNBA and WNBA media, Caitlin Clark is not your mule. I repeat, Caitlin Clark is not your mule. Okay? So, now we're in the second season of Caitlin Clark and the WNBA. And the same theme is taking place where we have um, hand checking. The players are holding onto her, not allowing her to have freedom of movement, not they're not letting her have her landing space, and the gaslighting of these I guess what they call the old guard. The few fans that were around pre Caitlin Clark era. And they're pretty. They're basically a bunch of miserable people that uh, use this WNBA space to pretend to be activists. They're really, bullies, and they've done this in the past where they kind of pile on certain players and you know, uh, just mess with certain players that they feel like they don't like or whatever. And it's something that now they're not used to having a player that comes in and everything's just different. It has to be like a whole splash of like hot water in the face because they thought they had the keys, and the keys were taken away from them, and now you have a audience of Middle America that is now watching the WNBA, really to see Caitlin Clark and how she takes her skills from the college level to the WNBA to the professional level, so-called professional level, because people, you know, now we're watching, these games. There's so much nonsense that goes on. It's like, come on, this is not a real professional league. Um, but that's neither here nor there. The point now is that the second season, we're seeing the same nonsense take place. It seems like the inmates run the asylum and they're the ones making the rules, and the warden is also an inmate, and you know, the people who are supposed to be the respected, the player who's supposed to be the most respected coming in and acknowledged is being treated like whatever. And this also goes to what else. This also goes to what I want to point out that they seem to use Caitlin Clark for a lot of nonsense clickbait narratives. They don't seem to give a damn about Caitlin Clark, her mental health, how all this is going to affect her, and they don't understand how lucky they are to have a Caitlin Clark. No other women's basketball player that I've ever seen can put up with even a pinky toe of what Caitlin Clark has put up with in the last 2 years. Not even a pinky. They can't even put up with a fraction of what Caitlin Clark goes through. The amount of nonsense, clickbaits, and stuff like that. These other players, they're out here arguing with troll accounts and whining with, oh this, oh that, oh well this person, Cookie Monster 123 on Twitter said something about him. I need an investigation. Oh, I can't handle this. Oh my gosh, they're out here arguing about nothing. They can't. They can't. They have no. They have no. Um, they have no professionalism. They have no. They have no tolerance. They have no. How you a professional athlete, you behave this way. And we didn't know how these women were before because no one could not pay me. Literally, I'm not even kidding. Could not pay me to watch the WNBA before 2024. There's no way with this. You know, it's just some brutal basketball. I've tried before to see their games, and it's just like, wow, this is. They're running up and down the court slow as hell. There's times where they get the ball. They're on the open transition, and they will break a wide open layup, and running slow as hell to get the layup. How do you do that? But they do it over and over. They do it regularly. Um, miss players under no pressure in the open. As professional athletes, this is what apparently they were doing before, Caitlin Clark, or we've been doing for the past, 30 years. And they've been trying to lie to everyone and tell everyone that this is the, greatest women's basketball game, type of style of game that can be played. And we have to support women and blah, 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 blah. Until a great woman came around, then all of a sudden now they don't want us to support, that woman. Now, this is like, oh no, this is not, that's not what we want to support women, but not that woman. So now, it's okay to go after Caitlin Clark, but, support all the other women, just not Caitlin Clark, because she's getting too much attention. So you have some nasty, I'm online, man. There are some nasty, nasty narratives online surrounding Caitlin Clark. You have some sorry people out here trying to um, keep creating these narratives that Caitlin Clark is some type of like privileged white girl, and that's the only reason why she has the success that she has, and she's using that to keep her platform up. And of course, anybody with half a brain knows that that's nonsense. They keep pushing these narratives in. Anytime you try to talk some sense, these fools don't want to hear it. They're caught up in their delusional fantasy land. That Angel Reese is this one of these black women players that people just hate because she's a black woman and she doesn't do anything to anybody, even though she is the one who brought this whole situation about. If she wanted to to be the innocent black woman, she could have just walked her ass off the court after they won the championship, the Natty, in college. She could have just walked off the court, thanked everybody, being a professional, and left it at that. She didn't want to do that. She wanted to go and taunt Caitlin Clark and rub it all in there, in her face, and talk all types of trash. And she admitted to being a villain. So this is where you're at now because you wanted to do that. So now we're in a scenario where those two are now pitted against each other. And to add to that, Caitlin Clark has never antagonized Angel Reese, but still has to keep apologizing for Angel Reese's behavior. No one wants to talk about that. You have a lot of black people going around claiming that Caitlin Clark is somehow benefiting from all this nonsense with Angel Reese, the back and forth that's taken place in the past 2 years. No, Caitlin Clark has not benefited from this all this messiness, all this drama. It's not. I'm looking at Caitlin Clark. She's not one of these people that's out here like gossiping and creating gossip. And, so that's why. But she's not out here you know creating rumors and be sneaky. You don't see her running around like talking about people behind their back. She's not, one of these other players. She's not here retweeting stuff that talks trash about her teammates. I don't see her out here, doing all this messy stuff that these other players get into. Um, but yeah, they keep trying to keep her in this these low vibrational discussions. And it's very annoying. And if Caitlin Clark wasn't the type of patient soul that she is, man, and she was somebody else, I don't know how this would even all play out. Any other girl, regular girl would have tapped out a long time ago. This is why we look at Caitlin Clark differently. And even if, let's say, she decides to she doesn't want to do it anymore after like a couple seasons. Let's say she doesn't even make the 5 years. She'll be a much bigger legend than any of these other women's basketball players that we have seen um, in the history of the WNBA. She'll be put in a much higher regard, regardless if she wins or doesn't win. If she has to continuously play against these narratives, which she's never played into. She continuously plays while dealing with these narratives, while still being professional, while still uplifting the game, um, putting up the numbers that she puts up. She's going to be a legend when it's all said and done. People can get mad at that all they want. The only reason why people are mad about this is because a lot of people want to continuously tap into this racial agreements, type stuff. And that's what's going on. And this is why, but, I'm going to go into that another time. But yeah, it's nonsense what Keely Clark's career is being caught up into. Basically, she's caught up in this whirlpool of drama that it's like, I don't think she can really escape from it. And she never asked to be in it. She did not partake in It's just Angel Reese's shenanigans, but she's somehow caught up into this quote unquote rivalry. That's not really a rivalry because Angel Reese is not skilled enough to be in a conversation with Caitlin Clark. And anyone with two eyes and unbigoted viewpoint can tell, you know. And the WNBA needs to let go of Angel Reese. There are much more skilled players who can get rebounds if that's what they're looking for. Uh, but it seems like they want to have drama over actual skill, and that's pretty sad. And that also goes to show that all this stuff that they've been seeing over the past however many years has been nonsense. They've been begging people to watch. They've been begging. There's all kinds of footage on the internet where they're begging people to watch the WNBA. They have all this good basketball, and why aren't people watching WNBA? And they're not making enough money, and they've always been blind. They've been known to be whiners for decades, and now they have the opportunity to be in a serious conversation with the game of Caitlin Clark, and they refuse to acknowledge uh, her game, and they want to play her off as some other player, and they want to pretend that they just have a good thing going on. They don't have a good thing going on. Caitlin Clark leaves, they're going back to shit. They're going back to irrelevance. Okay, they do not have other. They're not a bunch of other women playing basketball that are relevant or able to shoot to relevance like Caitlin Clark. So I don't understand why they want to shoot themselves in the foot and you know drown themselves um, in nonsense drama because that's all this is. They're just continuously being catty. Um, this whole thing is showing that women are way more catty. Like if they want to be messy, they're gonna be messy, man. And that's what they're doing with this whole situation. And it's pathetic, how this league is handling Caitlin Clark hype and you know, her rise to fame. They seem to also forget that WNBA was not seen as real basketball up until Caitlin Clark came into the league. Caitlin Clark started playing. It started giving women's basketball a better look because when they were playing before, whenever they tried to show these women's highlights, people were like, man, put these women back in the kitchen. Like, what is this? Who cares? No one cared. Literally nobody cared unless it's an attractive women's basketball player or Brittany Griner. And Brittany Griner, trying to get out of Russia. Nobody wants to talk about what they have going on. It's just that's just the real situation. Okay, and so that's my take. They need to get it together now that Caitlin Clark is injured. But if they don't, and something happens to Caitlin Clark, that's going to be in the WNBA. We don't want to hear about how there's an entire league of other players. We did not come here to see them. We don't care. There's some young players that coming in that I kind of like, but I feel like they're they're not they're not Caitlin Clark, type special. But they keep trying to write Caitlin Clark off, and it's annoying. And the WNBA has to fucking grow up and realize what she is, and they have to call things appropriately and stop allowing people to get into her landing space to hack her, to knock her down and get away with it, or what do you call it, hand check her. Don't allow stop allowing these other players to just be able to push her around like that, and actually call the appropriate calls that need to be called, and get things together. That's basically my take on this. Let me know how you guys feel.